Welcome to the Fertility Coaching Mastery Podcast. I'm Dr. Kayla Smith, fertility and hormone expert and founder of the Hormone Puzzle Society. I help wellness professionals like chiropractors, acupuncturists, doulas, nutritionists, personal trainers, and health coaches integrate fertility coaching into their work and build thriving, purpose-driven practices. I also work with beginners who are ready to step into this work and use their own painful story for their purpose. If you're ready to confidently support fertility clients, attract aligned clients, and grow a business that truly makes an impact, you're in the right place. Now let's dive in. On today's show, I talked to Hailey Rowe. She was a marketing and sales coach and strategist for fertility coaches and wellness practitioners who want to book clients, develop their no-brainer offers, and grow their online audience without social media overwhelm. She shares her FAST framework for marketing and business tips on her Health Coach Nation podcast, a top 1% on Listen Notes, and in her free Marketing Hub Facebook group. Named as one of the top 25 coaches in Chicago and one of the top 6 business podcasts for health coaches, Hailey has worked in the coaching industry since 2010 and in business development and marketing for startups since 2017. Today, we are going to talk to Hailey about why your Instagram isn't booking clients and the 4 steps to fix it. Now, let's welcome Hailey to the podcast. Hey, Hailey, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you so much.
I'm really excited to learn all about your business and to talk Instagram.
Yes.
Yeah, so let's just dive right in. We have a lot to cover today. Let's start with your story. Tell us a little bit more about your work and how you got into what you're doing.
Yeah. So I do marketing and sales coaching and consulting, and I've worked with a lot of fertility coaches, functional medicine practitioners, people who are in the wellness space. And the reason for that is I got my start. I was kind of an old soul in high school, and I started selling fitness DVDs of all things. And then in college, I got my bachelor's degree in entrepreneurship, and I knew I loved health. I knew I loved business. I knew I loved marketing. And so after college, I started working in the startup world, and I worked in marketing and business development for wellness startups. And so I got to see a lot of the behind the scenes of what it really takes to acquire sales and to market and to get your business off the ground. And in 2017, one of the companies that I worked for had to let everybody go because they weren't getting approved to open on the timeline they had planned because it was a wellness company and they weren't getting approved in the city and yada, yada. So that is when I decided I'm going to just work one-on-one with wellness professionals, because usually the part they don't foresee when they go through a certification is after this, they love coaching. They are so dedicated to it, but they're like, I didn't realize I have to learn marketing and sales and be good at this to make this a real career. So that's kind of where I come in.
I love that. And it's so true because, we come out of school and we have our certification and we know the clinical piece, but the marketing and the social media and the business building, we're really not prepared for that. So I'm so glad that there's people like you teaching this. It's so valuable. So we're going to talk about Instagram today. So talk to us about that. Where do you see people struggling the most with Instagram and with getting clients?
Yeah. So I have had clients across the board where some of them come to me having very small following, and then others come with a big following. They're already kind of an influencer and they're like, why am I not getting clients from this or sales from this? So I want to highlight one thing that I want everybody to know who's listening is even if you have a smaller following, you can still use Instagram to build client attraction. So the mistake that I see people make is a lot of people are putting all of their time and effort and energy into content creation, which is great, but you're not building any personal connections with your audience. And that means like welcoming them when they follow your account with a simple message or asking them a question about what kind of content do they want to see, or, engaging people in polls in your Instagram stories. So a lot of people are missing that, like, I want to connect one-on-one with these people, or they're missing also how are you going to be growing your account aside from content? Because content, yes, Reels can get reach in front of new potential followers, especially if you use the new trial Reels feature that can go in front of all non-followers, and you can get followers from that. However, you also are probably going to need to do things like collaborations on Instagram to grow your account, or have some other way. Either you're following people and hoping they follow you back, or you're doing ads, or something needs to be happening to be growing your account in addition to just posting, because you do, only 6%-ish of your audience is going to see your posts. So that's where like the personalized connections and collaborations and things like that can really help you in addition to just relying on content.
Gotcha. And I think that's so important and such a great point to make. This is one of the ways that I was able to build my business, is just from collaborating with people that were bigger than me and bringing value to my audience, but then also nurturing that audience and forming a connection and, talking to them like we're real people. This is what we do on a social media platform. So I love that you say that.
Yeah. And one of the things I love too about what you do is you are driving them to your email list a lot of the time. So like your lead magnet, because then you have a way higher chance of reaching them, right? Because think about it, 6% of your Instagram audience sees your posts, up to 18% or more will open your emails if they're on your email list. So I love that you're doing that too in your strategy.
Yeah, it's so important. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I see so many new coaches where they'll just have, and even older coaches and practitioners where they only are on social media and then they don't have an email list. And I'm like, what are you doing? Instagram and social media could go away tomorrow and then you lose everything with your business. So I love that you pointed that out. Any strategies around that piece, as far as building? I know we're not talking about email lists today, but I do think it's important. So just for a second, talk to us about that, about, any strategies you recommend around email list building.
Yeah, a couple things. Number one, if you do specifically with Instagram, have a pinned post, meaning right at the top of your profile, one of the first posts people see can be promoting your email lead magnet. So it needs to be a catchy hook about it. You're really selling the freebie. I know a lot of people think, oh, it's free, so everybody should want it. But no, you need to actually come up with bullet points about exactly why would they want this freebie, why do they need it right this second, and how do they get it? Can they comment the word freebie and then you're going to DM it to them, or do they need to go to the link in your bio? But make it really clear, have it pinned on your profile, have the link in your bio, put a story up regularly, maybe even once a week, promoting your freebie to your followers. And then another thing I like to do is my welcome message on Instagram. Sometimes I'll say, I have a free gift for my community and it's the whatever guide. Would you like me to send it to you? And if they do want it, I'll send it to them. So that's an option. The other thing is for list building, the collaboration piece is going to be huge. So just like on Instagram, you could do an Instagram live with somebody and both of your audiences will be notified that you guys are going live together. And that could be a way to grow your Instagram account, but you could take the same approach with email lists, meaning you could do an email freebie swap with a partner where you guys are going to promote each other's freebies to each other's lists. Or, another thing is any type of content you're making where you can weave in, by the way, I have a free guide about this. It's at such and such. You could do that. So there's a ton of ways you could grow your emails. You could do summits and bundles so we can go off in the weeds, but I would start with some of those options.
I love that. And so important. And one thing I wanted to mention too, and I'm sure you can agree, but make sure you create a valuable freebie. Don't just throw some stuff together and call it a freebie. You want it to be valuable for your audience. So speak to us on that for a second. How valuable should the freebie be?
So this is such a good question because value perception is different between everyone, right? But you want to think about your ideal client and what is an urgent pain point or urgent micro goal that they have and make it focused, make it pinpointed on one thing. Instead of what a lot of people do is they make a freebie about something really broad and generic that is information is not what people are signing up for these days because we have ChatGPT for that. We have Google for that. Solving a very specific, narrow problem. For example, one, maybe this is still a little broad, but you could say, 5 natural ways to boost fertility before trying IVF. And you share 5 things they could start with before they resort to what they don't want to do, maybe, which is IVF. So that's like a narrow pain point rather than me just saying how to be healthy and fertile, which is like whoa, it's like a lot of things. I don't know what I'm getting in that, right? So, and more isn't better. A lot of times people too think, oh, I just have to cram 70 pages of an ebook and then it will be super valuable, right? But no, the quicker you can solve the problem with the less information, the more tangibility you can have in your freebie, the better.
Oh, I completely agree. For a long time we had a fertility meal plan, and I can't tell you how valuable that was to people. I guess because they have trouble coming up with recipes, and so it was just a bunch of really delicious recipes, and that thing still does so well. So it can be simple, but yeah, it needs to be valuable. Let's talk about mistakes that you see people make. We talked about, just doing content and not doing things like collaboration or nurturing your audience, but what other mistakes are you seeing people make?
Yeah. Well, a big mistake is using a lot of stock images or like graphics without, if you're a personal brand or you're a fertility coach, it's a very human thing. People want to connect with their coach. They want to feel understood. This is a very sensitive topic. And so I think when you're always kind of playing it safe with some random stock images or even like AI images that look super fake, and you're never sharing yourself, or you're never doing like a talking head reel where you're actually talking direct to camera or showing you in video, it's hard for people to build trust with you. So I think that's a big mistake I see. Now, if that's what gets you started on social media, like you are not going to do it unless you can start with some, stock images. Okay, fine, get started and level up with more videos and stuff. But I think that's just a big thing I see. Another one is the way you're writing your captions. So a lot of times we're just thinking, I got to post just to post. And we're not thinking about having a well-rounded content strategy. So if you're a fertility coach, you have to hit the following types of content to have a well-rounded strategy. And we have to also think about there's different types of buyers and people seeing your posts. So there's two components. There's the types of posts. So you're going to need to have things like, are you addressing common hesitations or objections people would have about reaching out to you or listening to your podcast or signing up for your freebie? Maybe they have hesitations like, oh, I've tried everything, so why would I try one more time with your coaching program or whatever it is. So objections, value-based, that's the easiest one. That's probably what most of your listeners are already doing, where they're giving tips or things like that. Storytelling posts, because some people are more emotional buyers and they need emotional connection. They want to feel like they're friends with you, or they want to feel like they get, like you understand them. Engagement types of posts. So those are the kind of posts that will grow your account, where you're saying like, save this recipe for later, or share this with a friend, or tag another, badass woman who needs to hear this today, or whatever it is. So you want to have those, and then authority building and social proof, right? Why should they trust you as their coach? But then within the caption, a lot of times people lead with no hook or headline. So it just starts vomiting the tips. And then, they don't do spaces in between their paragraphs. So it looks like a huge chunk of text, which is not fun or easy to read. And then they don't have a call to action. It's just like, yeah, there's the tip, right? No call to engage or comment on the post, no call to action to share it, no follow for more tips or whatever it may be. And the last kind of missed opportunity I think that I see is on your post, doing more of the carousel posts where it's people have to swipe through to read it and breaking up the information, or the reels. Those are the two types of posts that Instagram pushes out the most. Reels hit new followers more than your current followers. So that's a good one if you want to get new followers. Carousels go mostly to your current followers, not to say they can't show up on the discovery feed, but that's a great one for when you want to really nurture your current followers. So I think having a balance of those, and then on the post, using the things that Instagram gives you to help you have more visibility, like a location tag, right? Maybe you're at a certain place, you could tag the location and come up on that location, or adding the trending audios to the background of your video. Don't make it so loud that you can't hear yourself, but those are tools that Instagram gives you to try to help you, get more reach and visibility. So use those.
Gotcha. And that makes a lot of sense. And for the reels, do you recommend people doing video for those, or can they still do posts but just create reels?
You can do both, but I do find the videos are sometimes perform better, at least with my clients and what I've seen with insights, but you could do a little bit of both.
Gotcha. Great. Well, let's dive into your 4-step framework, because you have a 4-step framework that you say these are the places where people really need to focus the most to get real results. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So the 4 steps are, and I'll go through each one in more depth after I give the overview. So it's connect, engage, pre-offer, and sell. So when we're coming up with your strategy plan for any platform or any marketing method, we first have to figure out who you want to connect with. So who is your niche? What do they struggle with? Where do they hang out? And then from there, we need to figure out what's going to be your connection method. So for some of my clients, it's they want to do local workshops, or they want to do LinkedIn lead gen, or they want to do Instagram. So if we're doing Instagram, how are you going to be connecting with new leads each week? Is it going to be, you're going to try to plan like 2 collaborations a month where you're getting shout outs from other content creators? Or is it going to be private messaging? Or is it going to be, you're going to do a giveaway, to grow your account once a quarter? Like figuring out what that needs to look like. How are you going to be connecting or reaching new people? Then the engagement piece is where we need to come up with what is your approach to finding out how you can be useful for your audience. So if we're doing welcome messages, I like to incorporate an intentional question that helps us know what your audience is struggling with or what their goal is, so that you can actually deliver on that. Because nobody likes it when you get a pitch out of place when you didn't ask for it, right? So the engage part of my framework helps you get a grasp either through market research you're doing, or through asking questions in your posts, or through asking questions in your messages to people, where you can find out, how can I be useful and helpful to this person? And then once we know that, then we do a pre-offer. This is something that is free, that builds trust, that allows you to deliver a quick win to your audience. Now, it's only delivered if they shared with you something, their goal or struggle, something they're dealing with. But that's the stage where you would offer, hey, I could help with that. And then the last stage is the sales phase, which is inviting to your discovery call or your webinar or whatever it is that you do as your sales process, and making sure that, in your content or in your emails, you have a phase where it is more, you're incorporating some promo and how people can work with you and how people can book a call with you and that kind of thing. So when we're using Instagram, we want to think about each of those phases and where the gaps are, where you may need to be improving, and just in general, what's going to be your approach to make sure you're moving people through those phases.
Gotcha. And that makes a lot of sense. And it really does give us a strategy behind just posting and hoping, and, it moves people through a journey, which I really love. And so we talked a little bit about DMs and positioning and messaging, but talk to us about that. Should we be, starting conversations with people in DMs? What is your strategy behind that piece?
Yeah, with Instagram, people are on there a lot of times for entertainment, to zone out. Right? So we need to keep that in mind in our approach on Instagram. So it's not that I'm against doing outreach on Instagram. I think it can be great, but I am more so in the mindset that you have to ask a permission-based question. And I like to take the approach of asking, like, what kind of content would you find useful on my page if they're following you, right? Like, so when people follow you, sending them a welcome message. But I'm also a fan on Instagram. It can be a great platform to find collab partners and podcast hosts and other people you can collaborate with and get in front of their audience to make a better offer to. So I actually like to splitting up my outreach on Instagram to sometimes be to a podcast host or collab partner saying, hey, I saw your Instagram. I saw you do this. Here's what I do. I think there may be an overlap in some good ways or synergy. Would you be open to a collab chat? And people are very receptive to that. And that can get you in front of many people. At one time, I had a client who partnered with somebody, did a guest webinar in front of 550 women, got several email subscribers in one day. So that's a great thing. I also think with the DMs, I think it's good to be curious. It's good to ask questions. But, some people are like, well, I don't want people to think that I want to work with them as a client. Well, why? Because that's what you're doing. Why would you want to hide that, right? So I actually think it's better to be permission-based and direct instead of like, what's your favorite color? You know, because people are going to be like, what's going on? Like, where are we going with this? Especially if they're new to you and they don't know you, right? So it's not that you're going to send in the first message, here's my offer, do you want to buy it? I'm not saying do that. That's a very bad idea. I am saying ask an intentional question. Like, hey, I saw you also, listen to this fertility podcast. I love talking to women about fertility. Is this something that you want to see more content on? I would love to connect here on Instagram. Like something like that, where it is intentional and clear, because nobody wants to feel like there's a hidden agenda.
Yeah. And I completely agree. We do something like that similar where we'll DM, and we definitely do the welcome message like you recommended. And then we'll do, tell people about our podcast. But then sometimes even I'll start a conversation and just be like, tell me about your fertility. Where are you at in your journey?
Yeah.
And then they start talking and we form a relationship. And then I'm like, then they're asking me, one, like, how can I book a call with you? So I think it is really relationship driven and not pitching in the first, couple of messages to turn people off. So talk to us too about, a lot of times practitioners and coaches will come into this space and they're really scared, especially when we talked about doing the live videos. They don't want to put their face on camera. And we touched on this a little bit, but talk to us about the mindset around that. How do you coach your clients through, kind of getting out of their own way and not being scared to put themselves out there?
Oh, that's such a great question, because it is so real. And I can relate to that lately more than ever, because I have braces right now and I have rubber bands, and I'm so
I could not even see it. I didn't
clear
even know
that I got lipstick on one of them. But anyways, it's a whole thing. But so I get it. I get wanting to hide, isolate. But you have to think about your mission, and you have to think about who you're talking to. And even if one person is helped from your work, it's worth it. And I think it's really important, number one, to realize, I think a lot of people are afraid to do it because they're afraid it's not going to be perfect, or they're going to mess up, or whatever. And I think it's important to remember that, number one, yes, you are, and that is okay. Nobody gets to skip that part. I bet if you go back and listen to your first podcast, Dr. Kayla, or my first Instagram post, it's terrible, right? Yeah. But the only way to get better is to keep doing it and refining. So that's number one. And number two, people don't expect you to be perfect. I've had people actually say, like, wow, you give me more comfort to do this stuff because I can tell you're not perfect. So it's okay. And people want to connect with humans. And if you're perfect, they're not going to relate at all. So I think there's some important things to think about there. And I also think you have to get unselfish. Like, it's very easy to be like, oh, how do I look? And I want to sound smart and I want to get it right. And you're always thinking about yourself in that case, as opposed to how can I serve? How can I help my audience today? What do they need to hear today? What do I want them to know? How do I want them to feel? Those kinds of questions.
I love that. And I completely agree. And you are so right. When I first started my business, I had never done a live video. This is when Facebook was just getting live. There wasn't even Instagram.
Mm-hmm. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like in 2018, people were going live on Facebook and on my personal page. And so you do, it's a muscle that you build and you just get better over time. And I completely agree too. It's not, you have to think it's not about you. It's about who you're trying to serve, and go in with that mindset. And then that kind of squashes the nerves until you build that muscle more.
And you bring up a good point, build the muscle, right? So like for me with lives, I remember my first live, it turned red in my chest. My voice was shaky. I saw someone from high school like hop in on the live and I was like, no. But I told myself my rule was like, you can delete it when it's done. And that was like my first baby step.
Yes.
Or maybe your first baby step to build the reps or build the muscle is like, I'm going to do a 20-second video and I'm going to pre-record it on my phone. It's not going to be live. I'm going to post it as a pre-recorded, and that's the first baby step. So it's okay too to like create those little mini milestones for yourself.
Yeah, I love that. I know. I remember I used to print what I wanted to say. I would literally print it. I would tape it to my computer and I'd be like, oh my God, please don't forget what you want to say. You just have to keep pushing through and then you'll get better. So I love all of that. Amazing, Hailey. Well, we do have to take a short break. So we're going to do that now. We're going to hear a word from our sponsors. We're going to come back and we're going to talk more practical tips on how to really start and grow on Instagram. So we'll be right back. Before we continue, I want to share a resource with you. If you're a beginner or a wellness professional who feels called to support fertility, but you're not quite sure how to actually turn that into a coaching offer or a business, well, I've created something to help you. It's called Fertility Coaching Roadmap. Inside, I walk you through step-by-step how to integrate fertility coaching into your current practice, transition into a virtual or online business, attract and enroll aligned clients, and create real, lasting results. If you're ready for more clarity and direction, you can download the free roadmap in the show notes. Now let's get back to the episode. Hey, Hailey, welcome back.
Thank you.
So let's talk practical tips. You've given us so much in the first half, but maybe 3 to 5 things that you say these are non-negotiables as you start your business and really start to focus on Instagram.
Yeah. So if you're just getting started on Instagram, the first step is to audit your profile. Meaning within the first 3 seconds, is it very clear in your bio what you do, how you help people? And would you be someone you'd want to follow if you were your ideal client? Is there something that shows some credibility and authority? Do you have a profile picture where it's your face and not your cat or your dog or a plant, right? So that's going to be really important, number one. Number two, do you have the 3 most important pinned posts if you're a service provider? So it's very important at the top of your profile. Instagram gives you the option to pin 3 posts that you want people to see as the first post on your profile, no matter when they were posted. So it can be an old post if you want. And what I recommend is to cover, you want to think about it like when someone goes to your website and you have a services page and you have a freebie or a lead magnet and you have testimonials or something like that. It's kind of similar with these pin posts. You want to use that as an opportunity to have a post maybe about like introducing yourself and your story, perhaps one about your services, and then maybe one that's like a case study or your best testimonial or a collection of testimonials or things like that. Because most of your listeners are not listening to be influencers. Most of them are listening to book clients. So even though those types of posts, I will tell you right now, testimonial posts are not going to get a ton of saves and shares and likes, but they do nurture the right kind of people you want to be nurturing, which is you want to be booking clients. If you're an influencer, I'd tell you totally different advice. But if you're trying to book clients, that's really important. And then the third thing, because I think you said 3 tips, right? The last thing I would say is to decide a baseline you're going to stick with how much you're going to post per week, but as well, how much connecting you're going to do per week. Set a goal. I'm going to do 2 collab outreaches a week. I'm going to do 5 welcome messages to new followers. I'm going to try to, whatever it may be, but set a number for yourself or target. Because what I find is a lot of times people don't have a plan and then they get stuck into scrolling and they start comparing themselves to other people and they're not like getting in and getting out of Instagram. They're like just going in with a vague idea of what they want to do. And pro tip, check your hidden DMs too, because sometimes I've missed people messaging me about, hey, what do you do? Or I'm interested in your coaching, and Instagram makes it kind of hard to find. So check all your inboxes on Instagram. That's my last tip.
Yes, and such helpful tips, and I completely agree with all of that. What about posting consistency? How often should we be posting? You kind of mentioned we should be doing reels and posts and stories, but talk to us about that. How often on each one of those?
So it used to be that Instagram cared more about, are you consistent with the cadence? Like if you're doing 3 posts a week, are you doing that every week? And it like rewarded you for that. Nowadays, Instagram just likes volume. So the more you post, the more it's going to help you, unfortunately and fortunately. So what I recommend is decide a minimum baseline that you're going to commit to honor your commitment. Like I'm going to post 3 times a week or 2 times a week. And then once you kind of master that, and maybe I do recommend batching your content ideas so that it's easier and you're not just like waiting the day of and being like, what should I post today? Once you master that, then add more. Again, this is why I recommend doing the connecting piece, because then you don't have to post as much. But I had a lady who was a guest speaker in my program. She has like 500,000 followers on Instagram, maybe more. And she is in her 50s. And she showed that it's possible if you don't understand Instagram and you're not tech savvy. She posts though, and I'm going to tell you this, it's going to be depressing, 3 times a day. And she went live every day for a year. So wow. Do you need to do that? No. But did she grow her organically without ads following to like over 500,000 people? Yes. So if you're like, Instagram posting is the only thing I want to focus on and the thing that I want to double down on, that was her formula, But if you are going to accompany your Instagram with some of the connecting and the collaborations and other things, then I would say you can get away with posting way less. I do not post every day. At this point, it's kind of easy for me to post every day because I have so much content I can repurpose, but you don't have to, make it on Instagram.
Should they focus on one platform as they're getting started, or do you recommend kind of spreading your love around and focusing on multiple platforms?
Well, typically I recommend starting with one and getting, like we said, a minimum baseline going. And then as soon as you can start repurposing, I do recommend doing that.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. How about one mistake you made in your business early on?
Oh my gosh. Well, there's so many, but I'll tell you with content in general, there was a week, I use a timer app called Toggle, Toggl, and I timed myself of how much time I was spending creating content in a week. And I wasn't at the time getting really any results from it. And it was like 14 hours a week, which was 13, 14 hours a week. And I was like, something has to change because that is not what I want to be doing all the time, right? So I think that was a big mistake, like focusing on the wrong things and out of order because you're learning. And that's why I think having a mentor, and same thing with coaching, like your people doing fertility coaching, having something they can have that gives them a structure of how to do it and the confidence to do it. And just like I do with the business and marketing coaching, like let's go in an order that makes sense and let's learn from what has worked for people instead of like what I was doing with the content creation is kind of like, spending so much time on it and then having to really realize I am not spending my time the way that I should for client generation and for where I want to be going with my business.
Yeah. And I think that's such a good point you make too. If you're doing something and it's not working, let's reevaluate and let's try something else. Don't just keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So I love that you say that. What about on the flip side? What's one thing that you did in your business early on that you're like, I'm so glad I did that. That was so valuable for me.
I think a couple things. So when I realized even though I had worked in business development and marketing, and I knew that kind of stuff, I still joined mentorship programs, masterminds, signed up for private coaches throughout the years. And the very first one I did, I tripled my investment. And so I was so glad that I got support because I think part of it too is just entrepreneurship can be really lonely. And when you have a community and you have someone you can come to and who gets it, it just feels a lot better. And you naturally tend to do more in your business because you're like, oh, I'm on the line. I have skin in the game. So there was a lot of reasons why I was glad I did that. And I think the other thing too that I'm really glad I did early on is I started a podcast. And it was more so just for me to have the excuse to talk to cool people at the beginning, but it ended up turning into something that, now is in the top 1% on Listen Notes. And I've gotten to interview JJ Virgin and Shalene Johnson and Amy Porter, like people huge in the space, my role models. And so I'm really glad I started that in 2017, even though it was really bad and really inconsistent at the time. It's turned into a really fun platform for me.
I love that. My first podcast has been one of the best things that I ever did as well. It's such a valuable thing. And I was just interviewing somebody before you about podcasting and they were saying how as a new coach, I don't know that I would recommend starting a podcast right now because it is so competitive. It's not like it was back then, but it is a very valuable tool as you get started in your business to think about. So I love that you say that. And that's why I started mine, so I could talk to cool people.
Yeah, I agree.
So really cool. What would you say to somebody who maybe is listening to this and they're feeling overwhelmed? Maybe they're like, I'm already doing all of these things that she's saying and it's just not working. What would you tell them to do in the next 7 days to see traction?
Great question. So the first thing I would ask is really nothing working? Because when we say that, a lot of times we're generalizing and we're not actually getting into like troubleshooting, resourcefulness, problem solving mode. So the first thing I would do is ask, is there anything that's indicating it could work on my Instagram? Meaning, go back and look at your insights. Is there some posts that got more likes than others, even if it's not a lot? Is there some, and what do you notice about the trends of that post? What time of day was it posted? Things like that. Pay attention to that. So I always like to go through a process of like, what is working, if anything, or what has worked at one point in the past and get very granular and detailed. 2, if nothing's working, or quote unquote, nothing's working, what looks like it could work on my own profile or indicates it might be the right track. that I want to like double down and test more of and do better? Or what's working for other people in my field that I could use as clues? And then the third thing is, what do I think could work, or what's my guesses as to why this isn't working? Because a lot of times your gut instinct is right. So a lot of times they'll be like, well, I've been pretty inconsistent, or I am not sharing anything vulnerable or personal. It's really generic content written by AI. Or, like there's going to be some kind of gut thing that you're probably right about, and that can give you some clues about what to do next. But the thing that I'd say about overwhelm is moving into what's my next logical step as soon as possible instead of dwelling in the overwhelm is going to be very important.
I love that. Yes, definitely. Don't dwell in the overwhelm. Think about that next step. Amazing. Hailey, well, it's always so fun to have you on the podcast. We do have to start to wrap up. There's a few things I want to do before we close out for today. First, I just want to say thank you. You're always such a wealth of information, and I just enjoy talking to you so much. So thank you.
I always love being with you, and I'm so glad I've gotten to know you over these last couple years.
Me too. And I want our audience to get to know you personally. So I do like to play a game with my guests. It's called a lightning round. And so I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and you can just tell me the first thing that comes to mind. So do you want to play?
Of course.
Cool. All right. So first question, what is one daily habit that's made the biggest impact on your life?
So two things came to mind. One is daily walks, because that allows me to just process my life and listen to podcasts and learn things and get out in nature and de-stress. The other one that comes up is time blocking and evaluating, meaning at the end of the week, I look back at how I spent my time and I ask what went well, what didn't go well, what do I want to tweak, and what do I want to do more of or less of next week.
I love that. I love a good time block. I do it every week. I have from the beginning, and it is so valuable. So I love that you say that. How about AI? Yes, no, or you're still thinking about it?
Yes, I am using AI in certain ways, but no, in that making sure that if you are using AI, especially for something like content, you need to personalize it a little bit. Okay. So making sure you're not just blindly following AI. So yes, but with discernment.
Yes, I agree. How about what's one thing that you do differently in your business now that you wish you had done sooner?
I would say the main thing that comes up for me is majoring in the majors and not the minors. So meaning I see so many of my clients get worked up about little tiny details or being perfectionists about their graphic for Instagram or things like that don't matter that much in the grand scheme of things, compared or taking like 2 years to name their business instead of just deciding and honoring it. So for me, a big lesson, because I used to get stewed, like I would spiral on those little tiny decisions, is becoming a faster decision maker and majoring in the most important things instead of like little tiny details that don't matter that much.
Sure. How about coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
I like nitro cold brews, of course. I like coffee black. I like yerba mate, though. That's like my favorite. But I realize you have to do the unsmoked version if you're a health nut, because apparently I drank the smoked one for a long time, and I learned it's like really bad for you.
Oh, no.
It's smoked and it's not good for your lungs or something. So don't do that.
Yeah. How about a belief you have about your business that you've changed your mind about? A past belief that you've now changed?
Good question. I used to think that strategy mattered more than mindset and personality traits. And now I think the traits you build and who you are and the mindset is more important or equally as important as the strategy. Because what I see a lot of, if you're entertaining quitting your business while doing your business, you're probably not going to succeed, because you're like always have this wishy-washy energy behind everything you do. And you're just not like fully committed and fully able to problem solve with a clear brain. So I think there's like little things like that with our mindset that are so important, because two people could have the same strategy and one person could be crushing it because they have the right energy and tone behind it and they're doing it consistently because they believe in it and they believe they're going to succeed. And then another person is like inconsistent, the energy and tone behind it's like, why do I have to do this? I think this is going to fail and not succeed. So I think mindset matters a lot.
Yeah, I love that you say that. That's why I call my, programs Becoming a Fertility Coach, because I want you to step into that identity of becoming a fertility coach. This is a new way of being for you. So I love that you say that. The mindset is so huge and it's so powerful, and I completely agree. Well, as we start to wrap up, first, I have one other question for you. And I love to ask my guests this, but as people listening to this, they're thinking about becoming a certified fertility coach. So why, in your opinion, is that so important, especially to get certified in the niche that you want in?
Yeah. So when you're dealing with people's bodies or health related things, it's really important that you're trained and you know what you're talking about and you're credible, right? Because there's risk. If you tell someone something that's not founded or not right for them, and their health is on the line. So I think it is really important to get certified. And I think the other thing is, this is something, especially I'm sure many of your listeners have their own journeys with this, or they're really passionate about this topic. And I think it's amazing to niche down into something that is an urgent pain point that people have. And this is definitely one, and it's on the rise. So when we talk about, part of what I talk about with clients is finding a niche that's growing, that's in demand, that would be willing to pay to solve this problem because it's worth it enough to them. And this is definitely a niche that fits that criteria.
Sure. Yeah, it's growing, and it's just crazy statistics. 1 in 6 people are struggling globally. It's like 1.3 billion people worldwide struggle with infertility. So wow. I love that you say that. And it's such a passion project and a mission of mine to solve that. So that's where our coaches come in. Well, Hailey, tell everybody, where can they find you? Where can they learn more about your work? You also have a freebie for us, so tell us about that.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at Hailey_Rowe. My name is spelled with a Hailey, Rowe, Rowe. I have the Health Coach Nation podcast, which Kayla has been on, and we should have you back. And then I have a free gift. It's a free 4 steps to client attraction playbook. So it gives you exact steps you can use this week using those 4 steps of client attraction to book your next sales. So it's available at haileyrowe.com/client-attraction. And then I have the free Marketing Hub Facebook group that you can just find on Facebook. So thank you so much for having me. And those would be the top places.
I love that. And I'll put all that in the show notes. And thank you again for being here. Any final thoughts? What's a piece of inspiration you want to leave to, somebody thinking about pursuing this career? What would you say to that person?
I would say do it for the right reasons, because sometimes I think people just go in thinking like, I just want to live the laptop lifestyle at the beach. And if that's your reason for going into entrepreneurship, it's going to be really hard for you because it's going to take some steps to get it up and running, right? So do it because you love this. Do it because you want to build a certain lifestyle for yourself in the future. That's all great and good, but do it because you actually want to help people and, you're serious about that.
Yes, I completely agree. I love it. Well, thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you to everybody who's listening to this episode of Fertility Coaching Mastery Podcast. We hope you have a great week and you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next time. So bye for now. If this episode resonated with you, make sure you've subscribed so you never miss a new one. And if you found this helpful, I would love for you to leave a review or share it with another practitioner who's ready to step into fertility coaching. You can also download the Fertility Coaching Roadmap in the show notes to start to build your next level of impact. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next episode, because the world needs more supported fertility journeys and more practitioners like you leading the way.